What's up, YouTube? I'm going to be going over a Texas installation into a new Phoenix app. You can see up here at the top that I'm using Elixir 173 compiled with Erlang OTP 21. I believe it's 21.0.6 or something, I forget. So I created a new Phoenix app, Mixed Phoenix New YouTube with no ecto. It's called YouTube Tut is the name of the project. I've got the archive installed for Phoenix 1.4, so 1.4 has not actually been released yet, I don't think, or there might be a release candidate out now. But 1.4 uses Webpack instead of Brunch. Is kind of the biggest change, but there's a lot of small changes. So if y'all are still on 1.3 because that's a stable release, then just know that this is Phoenix 1.4, so there might be some differences with the asset pipeline. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. Change YouTube Tut, and boom. So we're on Texas 031, Texas 0318. That should help with this video to let you know how out of date this video is when you're watching it. Let's go ahead and add these dependencies, bring them in. So go to mix.exs and we'll add the Texas dependency first. And I said that was 031, I believe, yeah. 031. We'll bring that in. We'll go to assets package.json. That'll allow us to add the Texas.js dependency, and that was at version 0318. 0318. Great. So quit out of vim, mix-steps.get. We'll bring in the Elixir dependencies, and we'll go to assets and npm install. That'll bring in the Texas.js dependencies. So while that's happening, we'll go and look over the next steps. After we've installed all that, set up your WebSocket channels in Texas.js. So really these lines are important. We're going to import socket. That by default is commented out, but this is just Phoenix's socket, and this is the Texas.js stuff. And you'll notice the Texas.js is taking as an argument the socket. That's because Texas doesn't want to take over the socket. It just wants to reuse the socket. So we'll go ahead and close out this channel, bring that back up. Let's go to assets, app.js, and copy and paste this. Great. And that should bring in Texas.js here, should instantiate it here. One thing that I like to do is go to my socket.js. Nope. Where's socket at? There. And I like to delete this channel. This is like a default channel that it joins, and it shows messages in the console, and it'll give you some errors if you don't have a topic and subtopic to match that. So go ahead and delete that if you don't want those errors for the purposes of this tutorial. All we're really doing in this is we're importing socket from the Phoenix library. We're setting up the socket right here. We're connecting to the socket right here, and then that already connected socket's getting exported out, and we're importing it in this file right here, and we're passing it to our Texas.js here. Continuing. Now in order to have Texas do all the socket things for us that we as application developers don't have to worry about too much, we will go to our default socket, which is the user socket, and we'll put use Texas socket, and that's just going to like spin up a channel for us that Texas uses to pass messages back and forth, and has some logic in there for rerouting to controllers and whatnot, but you don't have to worry about too much. Just know that Texas does do some WebSockety things. Configuration. So we'll go to config, and it's right here, and we'll just paste this right here. So Texas wants to reuse Phoenix's pub sub, and wants to reuse some parts of the router, and it needs to set up a templating engine that we're using under the text. I guess we'll call that a namespace. So let's just copy this and replace this stuff. Oops, there we go. Get rid of that. And yank that out. Great, so now we've configured it to let Texas know where our endpoint and router is, and also set up the templating engine for Phoenix. Alright, so we need to put a plug in the pipeline. Texas needs to insert a cookie, and this is how it's going to do it. So router, and cool. So that will take care of inserting the cookie whenever it needs to. All right, so what we could do is we could import Texas controller into each of our controllers that we make inside this project, but Phoenix does have this macro whenever you go to controllers, page controller. I'll show you real quick. So this is a newly installed app where it gives you an option to say if it's a controller or view, or there might be, I think there's other options as well. And we're saying use YouTube Tut Web controller, and what that does is that brings in this macro right here that we will look at. Nope. Right here. And so what that does is at the bottom it says this using is what gets called whenever you have a use statement inside at compile time. It gets called. This says apply this module which, and so which right here is being passed as controller. So it's going to apply, which is a function that takes an MFA, a module function argument. So the module is this module. This is at compile time, this syntax gets changed to the current module you're in, which is that controller thing that we're passing right here, and no arguments. So which is controller, so we'll go to the controller function that's going to execute, and this is what it does. It does this stuff. It puts another using statement into the controller context. It imports plug.con, imports this. So we're just going to go ahead and import Texas.controller here, and that will give us access to some functions we need inside the controller context for each of our controllers now, instead of having to import it into each one. And I guess it's more Phoenix-y, since that's how Phoenix does it, I guess. Create a dynamic template. Cool, so we'll call that all the setup we need. In the next installment, we'll actually start building an application.